So I'm going to be reading a talk from The Most Precious Gift, which is a book that is a compendium of Luang Por Sucitto's writings. So this is called, and it's the subtitle is Honoring the Life and Work of Ajahn Sucitto. So the title of this talk is Releasing the Mind Through the Body, and this was offered on the November 22nd, 2014. Let's take a small section of the Satipatthana Sutta, the part where someone is sitting under a tree with an erect spine, establishing mindfulness and putting aside covetousness and grief with regard to the world. Covetousness and grief means hankering, wanting, ambition, distress, despondency, despair, hopelessness. Basically, all the impacts of the world, whatever your world is in terms of people, jobs, scenarios, and so on. This putting aside covetousness and grief is already quite a step. It's not something you actually do, but shifts have to happen for that. Much of the rest of the sutta is taking us through this process by providing objects for attention and awareness. Attention is that which detects an object that either comes to mind or is deliberately brought into the mind. Awareness is that which receives the object and senses the impressions thus created. Intention is a general motivation or inclination. These are different aspects of the mind. The intention of mindfulness is to establish clarity, pure knowing, deep understanding, freedom, and release. When we are touched by powerful experiences of covetousness, grief, ambition, or distress, they generate their own intentions and motivations, and we want to get rid of them, quell, or satisfy them. So there is a field of these effects rippling in the mind, suddenly rising up and generating emotions. We want to find some way to make the suffering they cause cease. But the Buddha doesn't encourage us to go into the story of what is bothering us. Instead, he encourages us to establish and keep our attention steadily on this affective field through the mind and body. I think of these four establishments of mindfulness as Russian dolls, with one sitting inside the other. The biggest primary one is the body, which is a very subtle form of experience for attention. It's a very suitable form of experience for attention. You can definitely put your attention there. It's sensitive and responsive, but unlike the mind, the body has certain boundaries. The mind has no natural boundary. It can encompass anything and everything. It can be 1,000 miles away. It can be yesterday. It can be tomorrow. It can be in your toe. It has no natural basis. According to your intention and attention, that's where your mind will be. This is not a good thing, because what arises in the mind is often reactive, evocative, and arousing, not leading to nirvana, but to further agitation. What arises in the mind may not necessarily be unskillful, but you can see that this process of following mind objects can go on, giving no real sense of rest or release. So we're taking a hold of the process and trying to bring attention to the body, which has a finite quality and doesn't proliferate. Whatever object you put your mind on, the mind will create more and more around it. Amplify, embellish, analyze. That's its function. The body doesn't do that. Its function is to maintain a form. Body and mind are related. When you experience profound mental or psychological shocks, you can feel them running through your body. The mind is affected by many things: sights, sounds, thoughts. It's like water. When you drop a leaf on it, there's a ripple. Often it's not leaves dropped on the water, but rocks, which create big ripples. The mind can switch from experiencing the pleasant to the unpleasant in the flash of just one thought, from calm to agitation, excitement, happiness, disappointment, sometimes in response to just one word. It's extremely mobile and mutable. The mind can be extremely affected and then generate many ripples such as, why am I? What should I? Why does she? How is that? What about more of that, less of this? That's its nature, its function. But as a result, it has no real stability. The body's function is to stabilize. When you receive a shock, your body holds it. You stay in that state until you receive a signal that everything is safe again. Then it can unwind. Thus the body firms up and stabilizes how the mind has been affected, but you can notice when you have a profound mental effect such as fear. It stays in your body even when the cause itself has ceased. It takes some time for the body to shake itself out and hopefully release these effects. The body holds our flowing and fluctuating mind states. Whatever grabs our attention determines which particular mental signal we'll retain. For example, when you see an attractive advertisement, you feel aroused and the impression it makes remains. If it remains for long enough, you may start acting on it. If it just disappeared, you wouldn't be able to act upon it. It's held, and it's held through a certain subtle bodily quality, an activation, arousal, pressure, or panic. On a stressful working day, the body receives a lot of tension. Your neck and your eyes may become extremely activated, or your stomach tightens up. This effect in your body may stay with you all day long, and you can feel quite tired even if your body isn't exerting itself much, just because of the get-it-done urgency signals that are occurring. The mind is embodied, so these mental signals have an effect on the entire body. This constant activation of stress is a major cause of physical ill health. When you return home in the evening, this tension is still there, and you want to do something to discharge it. People will often switch on the TV or some other device, have a drink, eat something, or talk to somebody to give another signal to the body. That's all right now. You can relax. But often in doing so, we just add another layer of impressions to the ones that are already there. Instead of cleaning out, we are just repainting. Intention, attention, and contact create your mind-body experience. Intention selects signals and attention focuses on them. These signals become established in your nervous system. They are held in your body. You may become so absorbed in a signal of urgency that you don't notice anything else. Attention limits your awareness. It puts a boundary around it. If we're absorbed in thinking about a particular topic, the rest of the world disappears. We're oblivious to it. We can be like the absent-minded professor who found a piece of toast in his pocket. He was so involved in a philosophical problem while having his breakfast that he shoved the toast into his pocket. The most significant activation concerns defense, because the most important thing for a mortal, vulnerable being is to defend itself. If it doesn't defend itself when in danger, it won't be able to feed itself. For example, if a rabbit is placed in front of a fox and a carrot, it won't notice the carrot, will it? Because if it doesn't first notice the fox, it won't be able to eat the carrot. How often do our semi-conscious inclinations aim to protect ourselves from a disaster that will happen if we don't do this, whatever this is? How will the future be if you haven't earned enough money? You could lose your job if you don't get there on time. You could be seen in a negative light if you don't wear this or say that, or don't vote for this or buy that. We spend so much time defending ourselves from blame, criticism, or rejection by other beings. How much of our motivations, almost semi-conscious, are about defending ourselves? What happens when you defend yourself? There's a tightening, a speeding up, an armoring, probably activated in your chest, your throat, and your face. What's the motivation? What do you notice? How does that affect you? What is programmed into your experience of mind and becomes myself? The release from these effects is called calming, steadying, or clearing, samatha. But the release from being prone to those effects is more profound, and that occurs through insight. You may have quite a pleasant time on a retreat, but when you go back home, your triggers activate the same old responses again. You've had a calm time, but have you seen how you get triggered? The major trigger is defense, and often we're defending ourselves from other people, so our relational realm is really significant. We need to leave behind our tendency to defend and perform, particularly when we're in a group. We tend to strive to get somewhere, so we won't have the feeling that I didn't really make it, or I didn't have the optimal experience, or I have to keep up with other people so I don't feel I'm being left behind. That's why it's really important to tune into our relational field. How do we sense ourselves in a group? Better, the same, experienced, inexperienced, floundering? These effects won't do anything useful, and they will make the mind proliferate. It will take a gesture, a facial expression, a movement by another person, and generate something from it. Comparisons, antipathy, judgments, even ecstatic romances. That's why it's so helpful to come back into the body, because it's in the body that you can feel and release the effects of all that triggering. You can begin to undermine them, trying to release these seemingly psychological experiences psychologically is going the long way round. You may be able to arrive at a detailed understanding of the experiences, but direct release from them will take place within the body. And when that happens, we suddenly can see the world in a very different way. Our attention has to be carefully guided. Normally, our attention goes out through the sense doors: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body, which create a world of separation with something out there and me inside here. But in awareness itself, there are no boundaries between me and it. There's just feeling affected. There isn't somebody being affected, but just the affective sense. Stirring, moving, sinking, rising, shifting. The world is strange and fluid. It contains forms and images. Where's the separation between the inner world and the outer world? Which world really counts? The inner world, surely. It's the one that stays with you when you put your head on the pillow, and it's there when you get up in the morning. Your real basis is not sights and sounds, but this internal sense. Hence, the emphasis on restraining the senses. Don't let your attention keep running out, being affected and triggered by every sight and sound going on around you. Restrain it. This doesn't mean stifling it, but restraining it in order to understand more deeply and thoroughly what's happening and to find the base of release. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha begins by expounding mindfulness centered in the body with breathing in and breathing out. The Anapanasati Sutta is entirely dedicated to this process. This is how we bring our attention to the breathing, knowing when one is breathing in long or breathing out long, knowing when one is breathing in short or breathing out short, the full flow of the breath. The Buddha continues with experiencing the whole body breathing. We gradually go into the experience of breathing in and breathing out. The word is breathing, not breath. It's a dynamic experience that shifts and changes. How does the body experience that? How is it affected by it? Can we sense the quality of release that can occur when we're really with the body breathing and not getting triggered by other things like sights and sounds? Once you enter the process of breathing in and breathing out, you also experience all the embodied effects that have been created by where your attention, intention, and contact have been. There you experience both the potential for liberation and also the nub of the problem. You may think, I feel tight and lost. I'm just swimming around. There's no center. I was breathing all right until I started being mindful of it. Now I can't find it at all. It's slipping away. I feel restricted in my chest. What's happening? You're entering into your damage, the car crash that happens every day, the various phenomena, the signaling that has occurred, and switched these energies on. In a way, you have to touch them in order to release them, but you first have to build up a means of doing that. So you attend to the breathing. Where is it freest? Where is it most steady? Where is it simple? Where can you find it? In truth, in both the Satipatthana Sutta and the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha refers to sitting under a tree. You might imagine that in India, a tree gives a sense of seclusion and shelter. We start the meditation by feeling safe because the first signal is defense. As we don't have 58 trees in this shrine room, you can simply look around and sense what's in front of your body and what's behind you, what's touching the skin. There's nothing harmful here. But has your shield come off? You may think that everything is fine, but if you explore, you might recognize that some of these signals can still be there. It would be rather unusual if you had put aside your shields completely. Feel the movement as you're sitting, the slight expansion and contraction of the body as you breathe in and breathe out. Come into the fullness of the in-breathing, letting your body expand into the space around you. Then the Buddha describes the sitting posture as being with an erect spine. We're taking a seat. We're not perched, not ready to jump up and go somewhere else. We're not slumped, but really sitting, drawing the spine up, giving it a firm basis through the tail, the upper thighs, and the pelvis. The pelvis is a massive bony structure whose main function is to carry weight. Carrying weight is not the function of the shoulders. So you're sweeping your attention down your body, like water gradually draining energy from your face and your eyes down into the lower abdomen and the pelvis, grounding your attention in the body. What's beneath you is firm and supportive. It isn't going to go anywhere. It's your space. When you feel yourself breathing out, get to the end of the out-breath and then gently see whether it could go just a little more fully out, and whether you can track that in your lower abdomen. No need to hurry. We have to change the way we relate to time, which, for most people, is always primed to go to the next moment, to the next experience. In our meditation, there is no next moment. There's nothing you have to go to, because everything is going to happen by itself. You have all the time in the world to listen in, feel and tune into the muscles in the lower belly, right down to the pelvic floor, releasing, cleaning, emptying out. The in-breath does not start at the nose. It starts by an involuntary pulling in the abdominal region, a kind of dragging, drawing in. Breathing is calming because it's involuntary. You don't have to make it happen, but you do have to tune into it. Otherwise, your normal programs of hurry up, get it done, that's enough of this, now on to the next thing, will begin to affect your breathing, and you won't touch its full regenerative quality. So give yourself the space and the time to breathe out and wait for the in-breathing. Trust it, it's going to happen. Can you let the in-breathing be done purely through the lower body, as if there were a force down there, drawing the thread of breath in through the nostrils and throat? Allow the nasal channels and the back of the throat to stay open and inactive. Let the diaphragm obey the breathing, and not your attitudes, which generally affect it profoundly. The diaphragm and the solar plexus area will tighten up, become rock-like, when we have reactions of power, defense, or aggression. Can we release any lingering traces of these signals? The prompting to get it done and be good at it is not necessary. Acknowledge some of those signals and turn your attention further down your body so that the diaphragm is then looser and receptive. Just as your mind generates signals that go into your body can generate signals that go into the mind. Now we use the body to generate the powerful signals of let go, the breath is going to happen, tune in, listen, experience its fullness, let it express itself, be interested, be curious. What happens in your chest as that breath energy pushes? Can you allow it to keep your throat open? And what happens in your head when you receive the full sweep of the inhalation? When does it stop? What makes it stop? How does it know it's had enough? At the end of the in-breath, there's a hovering, something tingling and suffusive, and then a release, breathing out. You can pick up the effects, the energetic resonances of this with some practice. The Buddha doesn't stipulate that you should keep your eyes closed in meditation. In fact, closing them might not be beneficial. You're certainly not using them to look around, but you can have them just slightly open. Closed eyes give signals, and the primary one is go to sleep. Often you close your eyes because you want to take a nap. Another reason why you would close your eyes is to think something through carefully. Both sleeping and thinking are things we often do when we set out to meditate. If you're tired, leave your eyes open. If you have a lot of problems, a lot of things bothering you, don't close your eyes yet, because if you do, you'll become lost in thoughts of your problems. You want to address problems, but at the right time and in the right way. Just getting lost in them is not conducive to solving them, so keep your eyes slightly open. You will feel the difference. The reason why we tend to close our eyes or gaze downwards in meditation is that the visual field is our most habitual way of organizing ourselves. We tend to see the world first. The mind picks up visual signals strongly, so there's a lot of energy and activity in the eyes. Rapid eye activity is associated with thinking, and the eye then tends to contract and tighten up. This sends a signal to the mind: think, agitate. The other thing is that space and separation go along with seeing. What I see is separate from me. I'm here. What I see is there. Whether it's a centimeter, a meter, or a mile away, there's space between us, and I can see things that don't see me. I can peek. I can separate myself from what I see. Emotional tones in seeing are limited to: is the object threatening or attractive, familiar or unfamiliar? In a way, seeing is our first check on things. Is that thing going to kill me, or is it safe? Hearing or listening is another way of organizing ourselves. When listening, you're in the middle of things. There's no real distance. You can't really separate yourself from the sound. Only through inference can you recognize a sound as an airplane, but it might also be a vacuum cleaner in the next room, or maybe something wrong with your hearing. You can't exactly tell the distance of a sound. Hearing doesn't do that, but it carries a much richer sense of emotional tonality than seeing. We feel moved, inspired, touched, loved, threatened, or fascinated. There are many different tones and tonalities in hearing. That's why when people meditate, they often like to go to the hearing base, because it tends to open the heart. In personal relations, you want to talk to somebody, not just see them. You want them to listen to you and understand what you are saying, not just the contents of what you say, but the emotional tones. So when we come close to something that seems safe, we can turn our mind like a listening organ to get the full feeling of it, to know it more thoroughly, to sense how it affects us, to sense what it triggers in us. In people whose lifestyle is very much oriented towards the seeing faculty, such as soldiers or technicians, the heart can be switched off because it's not related to the visual sense. The seeing faculty leads to a technical exactitude, and that can be heartless. Would you want to meditate with that? Precision has its uses, but if you want to go a bit deeper, you can ask yourselves, where are kindness and compassion going to come from? Where is the pleasant feeling going to come from? It's not going to come through that visual channel. The place of exactitude is a fascinating place. It gives us a feeling of knowing it all and being in charge, adding all the numbers, linking the dots, doing the analysis, studying the books, but now in the direct experience, you're starting to listen in. If you examine more deeply, you come to body sense. Clearly, you're not watching your breath. I've never seen a single breath. Maybe on a cold morning, you might see a little bit of steam, but that's about it. If you focus on technical precision as you observe your breathing, meditation risks becoming a pretty dry experience about being precise and striving to become even more precise and refined. You can't really hear your breathing either, unless you have a cold or chest problem, but you can feel it through the body. The body sense is the most immediate. There's no way you can touch something without it touching you. The tactile sense is extremely delicate and refined. Your fingertips can pick up tiny degrees of sensation. Just rub your fingertips together, and you can feel every print on your fingers, every indentation. It's a very sensitive experience. Try to bring that faculty into your meditation. When you have your meditation object not razor sharp, but there, and clear enough, turn to it as if listening. What is this going to tell me? What is this about? How does this feel? Then you can explore, what is really touching me? Because in touch, the boundaries dissolve it and becomes just being touched. It's very sensitive. Then you recognize that the only organ which knows how to let go is the hand. Your eyes can't do that. You can shut them, but they don't let go. The ears don't let go, but the hand is organized to hold on and let go. That's why, in my understanding, it's so important to operate through all these organizing principles, getting the clarity, the empathy, but also seeing how I'm affected, how I loosen, soften, how I hold things clearly, precisely, and delicately, and how I'm able to let go. This will happen when the mind operates like a hand, not like an eye, but because we're most basically organized around our visual sense, that takes a bit of learning. When we walk, we feel our feet and sense how the body organizes itself around walking. We feel into it. Giving the body some exercise helps us to become more fully attuned to how the body sense works. Touching is obviously an external base, but the organizing of it occurs internally. For example, when you experience something you don't like, you can sense how the whole system is being affected. Maybe there's a tightening or a shrinking. In mindfulness of breathing, this touching base makes the experience very rich and precise in its own way, precise about what's being affected. We can also transfer the beneficial effects of breathing in and breathing out into places where our bodily sense is negatively affected. We carry worry, grief, anxiety, and frustration in our bodies, and we tighten up around them. The process of sending energy through the bodily systems brings healing and dispels covetousness and grief. So I'm just going to give a couple more minutes of reading. So I'm going to read a very short one called Staying Present. So this is offered on the same day. In practice, there needs to be a balance between proactive applications and relaxation. The proactive applications consist of creating something or placing the mind onto an object, such as a body or breathing. You can do that by lifting your attention with the thought, where's the body now? Where's the breath now? What is breathing out like now? You deliberately bring that thought up. That's why we say it's more active. When you're in walking, thought can be useful too. You could say, now I'm going to stand, and now I'm going to walk. Which part of the foot touches the ground first? You're lifting your attention onto an object so that it's not continually snagging and being dragged into unhelpful memories, thoughts, and feelings. The other main approach is relaxing, giving things space and not applying pressure, which gives a sense of clarification as we feel ourselves tensing up or getting tangled. We consciously let things pass, let things fade, simply with an out-breath and the very attitude of relaxing, softening. For clarity, your primary means would probably be using the mind like an eye. You're watching your body, thoughts, and feelings. The watching sense provides a sense of space. You are standing beside what's going on, rather than being thrown around in it. That objectivity gives you clarity. So you're using the body to lift your attention onto a supportive theme, and also to relax the pressures and energies that come up when the mind is still swinging around looking for some ground, for something to feed on or settle in, when it's caught up in that chaotic movement. You're lifting the mind when it gets dull, raising it onto something clear that it can focus on. Before walking, you can ask yourself, how does each leg move? And if you find yourself losing ground or feeling unstable, you can stop in the middle of your walking path and take the time for stabilizing, letting things rest before walking again. In times when the mind swings into emotional turbulence, our relationship with it may be benefited more by just listening, widening the listening sense. Both qualities of watching and listening have the sense of non-reaction and non-proliferation. Mindfulness curtails the proliferation, the creation of more mental stuff, and if you keep practicing in that way, things will calm down, and those qualities of watching and listening will be your fundamental modes. When you're on a retreat, you have alternating periods of sitting and walking, so look out for the sense of going into automatic, which is another way in which the mind starts to structure experience. You want to treat the beginning of every period as if it's the first time. When you have this feeling of, here we go again, another one of these, then you've gone into automatic mode, because it's never another one. It's always just this one. And that's where the touching sense is important, because that's always very specific. The feeling of the body at this particular time is quite specific, and you're sensing it, feeling it. You can stand and feel what it's like to have a body, widening your attention over the whole bodily form. How is that? Is there someone separate from this? Who is that? Is it possible to relax that sense of separateness which is bound up with what I will be, what I could be, where I was, and just be a body standing in the coolness of the air? Let yourself feel it. That helps us to undo these strong mental programs of time, identity, specific moods, and feelings. We're using mindfulness in the body to come out of these mental habits, clearing them, and in those moments of clearing, when there's a greater clarity, settledness, and spaciousness, when you don't feel the turbulence and entanglement, ask yourself, what's always here? As the dream finishes, what's always here? We call it pure knowing or direct knowing, the sense of awareness with no specific object, strategy, destination, or identity. It's just this. Then perhaps the mind starts to cloud over again. Practice is rather like that. It's a very personal and individual process. That's why the emphasis is on relationship, learning how to relate, how to be with yourself. One of the things I think that is so special about Lumpur Sucitto's teachings is that he really gets under, as he mentioned, like these automatic processes that we engage with. Often we get quite entangled with what we think meditation is supposed to be, and then we lose that whole sense of what it is that we're actually doing. So it becomes this like sort of thought process we're engaging in order to try to be calm or still. And Lumpur's emphasis is always on really investigating our experience within our own body, because a lot of times there can be a sense that we're investigating, but we're just kind of thinking and proliferating, or we're going through our automatic mode of what we think we're doing. And strangely enough, we can actually be ignoring our bodies, not really seeing the signals that the bodies are giving out, or the nuances of how we might be holding something and keeping something very tight but not realizing it. So his specialty is kind of helping people untie their habitual ways of ignoring their sense of how the body really is. Okay, well, we can end it there.